Hello, everybody. Okay, chapter 2. Here we go. Okay, this is chapter 2 of Agua Sangre. When the sun started heating up the beach, I walked back to the house and made some coffee. This is my friend Levon's house, and it's off-grid, so the stove is powered by gas. I light the stove and put a partial pot of coffee onto the burner and cover it. I buy the coffee for 10 pesos, 50 cents, from a little old lady who sells it in small paper pouches. I make 2 to 4 pots of coffee from her little bag, depending how strong I choose to make it. And each pot of coffee yields 4 to 5 cups of joe, quite a bargain for 10 pesos, in my opinion. The coffee is ground down to powder, and you use a French press to brew the coffee. You first add the coffee into the bottom of the container and then fill with boiling water. I like to add half of the water, stir it thoroughly, finish filling, and place and cover on top of the container, but do not press down on the plunger. I like to let it stew a while and typically wait 15 to 20 minutes. If you push down on the plunger and it does not move easily, it means you need to wait longer. After 15 minutes, it always permits me to compress the plunger, which separates the coffee grounds down to the bottom of the container in a nice, slow, even motion. It leaves behind delicious coffee, which is now ready to drink. I love this coffee because it is not bitter or acidic at all. It is a joy to drink black because it is so smooth. I have to add cream to most brands of coffee to hide its flaws. A lot of people love to smoke and drink coffee together, and many coffees remind me of what drinking cigarette ash would taste like. I've poured the coffee and the steam rises from my cup. I'm sitting in the shaded section of the patio staring at the Pacific Ocean down below. I just saw 3 small whales breach and flap their tails as if they were waving hello to me. I raise my coffee in reply and wish them happy hunting. The power and beauty of the Pacific is like no other body of water I've experienced. I've put on flippers and swam a mile offshore before it dawned on me how far out I was and completely out of my element. On that day, I attempted to swim out to meet the whales. I saw them passing on their morning patrol, and not really thinking about it, I grabbed a mask and fins and raced out across the sandy beach. I stopped to put on the flippers, spit in the mask before washing it away with an incoming wave, and then proceeded to high step it backwards as the waves pushed into me from behind, only to have the undertow win the tug of war and pull me out to sea. When I made it up to my waist and the waves started breaking before me, some of these waves were up to 4 meters tall. I rolled over and dipped under the waves and used the flippers to propel me forward, where the waters calmed considerably. You can move like a hot knife through butter wearing fins when the current isn't fighting against you. I made it to where I thought the whales would be, but they must have heard me coming and moved further out to sea. And I followed without giving it a second thought. When I entered a current flow of extremely chilly water, I imagined I must be in a much deeper section of the Pacific now. So I turned to look back at the beach, and I was shocked at how far I had gone. I could barely make out Levon's house from where I was treading water. I had lost sight of where the whales were, so there weren't many reasons to stay this far out. I didn't want my mind to start playing games with me about being a piece of bait for whatever big fish was out there. So I turned and started swimming back to shore. The fins are extremely helpful, especially when you get close to the shore and have to fight the undertow to make it back to your desired exit point. Levon has an isolated off-grid house on a rural beach in Mexico, where he is completely self-sufficient. He has his own freshwater well, solar panels that support all of his electrical needs, which aren't much, but include several refrigerators, pumps, and a lot of lights, should he choose to use them all. He even has a micro satellite dish for Wi-Fi. Being on the beach, the salty and humid environment can reduce many items to an oxidized mess in short order, so being self-sufficient is a challenge, and requires constant monitoring and maintenance. You rarely set it and forget it, but the alternative is to go without. I'm really enjoying my time here. Something as simple as this glorious cup of joe while listening to the waves crash onto the beach, waiting for the next National Geographic moment to arrive as time slows, even as the day unfolds. I struggle with month after month of winter in New Hampshire, so I come to Mexico to break up the monotony of that routine. And every year I seem to stay a little longer than I did the year before. I find a great deal of peace here, but sometimes it takes a week for all my problems and worries to melt away. Probably what Jimmy Buffett meant when he referred to Margaritaville. I don't need a margarita, but wouldn't turn one away if it was offered. Usually the choices here are Victoria or Corona beer. Money alone has never been my primary motivator. I respect the need for money because I always want to be able to do whatever it is I choose to do and never want money to be the reason I cannot do something. However, I always adopted the attitude, how much do I really need? But now, an action I took several years ago has me thinking about how I want to live going forward. I enjoy gambling, but have never been a big gambler because I've always feared addiction. I prefer to stay in control, and placing everything on black and spinning the roulette wheel never appealed to me. I should be excited, happy, ecstatic, but I'm not. I'm concerned it could provide too much complication and attract the wrong type of attention. When I was young and people would ask, would you rather be rich or famous? I considered it a no-brainer. Show me the money. Who the heck wants fame? Not me. I would hate to be walking down the street or out having dinner and be recognized people I don't know. That must be horrendous to contend with after the first couple times when the novelty wears off. Okay, well, today my Bitcoin alone is worth around $7 million US, or 138 million Mexican pesos. Next week, I suppose it could be 10 million US dollars or go to zero. When gold goes up and down in price, the gold is the constant and reflects the volatility of that paper currency compared to gold. There are many who believe gold is the ultimate store of value, proven over thousands of years, and that Bitcoin is absolutely worthless because nothing backs it. Is fiat currency backed by anything other than the government that prints it? If the world lost confidence in that government, would that fiat currency be worth less or worthless? I suspect most people would recommend cashing in at least half of my Bitcoin and holding it as currency or converting it into property, stocks, bonds, or precious metals. I hadn't thought much about my purchase until I listened to a video on RT.com with Max Kaiser and his wife, Stacy. Supposedly, people had been using these Bitcoin tokens to buy pizzas or to tip hot chicks who flashed for money on Twitch or some other game site. Max and Stacy are pro-Bitcoin and anti-establishment, specifically anti-bankster. I looked at Bitcoin simply as a long-term speculation that you buy, hold, and forget about while you live your life. I tend to be hard on whatever I own, and anything fragile tends to get destroyed when it gets dropped, dinged, or dented. I was not interested in cold storage or figuring out key codes and passwords that could be easily lost or destroyed if improperly moved or stored. I had other things to do with my life. If something has that much risk, I wasn't interested. As Dirty Harry reminded us in Magnum Force, a man has got to know his limitations. By far my favorite line from Clint Eastwood, because forgetting this rule is really why so many people get into trouble. It was even discussed thousands of years ago by Sun Tzu, who stated, if you know others and know yourself, you will win every battle. If you do not know others, but know yourself, you win one and lose one. If you do not know others and do not know yourself, you will lose every time. I had not actively tracked Bitcoin's progress until I met some people from Switzerland and Austria in Playa del Carmen who loved Bitcoin and couldn't wait to tell me how great it was. I told them I had heard of Bitcoin, but not Litecoin. They told me I'd regret it if I didn't buy Litecoin and many of the other new offerings. what they called an ICO, an initial coin offering, that were being launched. The feeding frenzy had begun, and now it appeared ICOs were the next tulip sensation across the globe. I joked with them that I should create my own ICO. These folks promised that everyone buying these ICOs now would make millions of euros or dollars in a year or two. They were already converting some of their Bitcoin into these altcoins. I remember one of these guys was 3 sheets to the wind, and he came around the table to where I was sitting and draped his arm around me. He started to make his case calmly, but then he started to exclaim excitedly about the future of these cryptocurrencies. He was a big fat guy, and he had to stop periodically to catch his breath. He was sweating profusely, and during these pauses, took a puff from his fag. I had to calm him down and tell him not to get too excited, but I really wanted him to stop talking or breathing on me because it smelled like rancid cigarette smoke. But he was passionate and emphatic. You should be buying with both hands. Buy as much as you can while you can. I was surprised to learn that Bitcoin was up to several $1,000s. Unlike financial markets, Bitcoin traded 24/7, so I started to check it daily. It exceeded all my expectations to see it could continue to appreciate so quickly. I really did like these guys and appreciated the information. One of the guys lives in Germany and told me he attends monthly rallies in Berlin to abolish the Federal Reserve. None of the sheeple in the United States are aware of the evil done by the Fed, but these people in Europe understood how messed up the system was. The USA could create $100 with the click of a mouse, but everyone else around the globe had to produce $100 worth of products or services to earn that $100. It's the end of chapter 2. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing from it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. That's 1 Timothy 6, verse 7 through 10. Have a great day, everybody. Peace.